Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The path is a subtle undertaking, and to be able to venture on the path, we have to become subtle. We have to have a very deep understanding of ourselves and our actions, and we must constantly be alert as to what it is that we are doing. We cannot have moments of self-indulgence. We cannot have moments of anger or hatred or animosity. We're not allowed to have these things. We have to be in an equilibrium. We have to be in a state of unity. We have to be in a state of serenity. We have to be in a state of equanimity. And we have to strive in order to do this. The first step in understanding this, the first step in becoming this way, is to know the difference between right and wrong. If we can't differentiate the difference between right and wrong, we can't differentiate the qualities and which qualities are permissible and which qualities are not permissible. So we have to have a very strong set of principles. We have to have an understanding of where we are allowed to go and where we are not allowed to go. And this is not just on the physical plane. This is on the internal plane. There are thought patterns that we shouldn't allow ourselves to indulge in. There are places that we shouldn't allow ourselves to go. For instance, bars are obviously forbidden. Places of ill repute are obviously forbidden to us. We have to enter into a state of purity. But to do that, we have to be very careful of our own actions and of our own attributes and of our own inclinations. There are certain inclinations that, when we indulge in them, separate us from truth, separate us from reality, and don't allow us to understand what really is. For instance, arrogance separates you from God. Why? Because arrogance means that somehow we have taken on the opinion that we are somehow running our own show, that we are somehow in charge and in control of what's happening, and that we're very good at it. As a matter of fact, we're better than the ones around us, so we know better than all of them. That's arrogance. And that's the terrible part about arrogance. A lot of people think that their arrogance just helps them get through things, takes them to the next level. They confuse their own arrogance with self-confidence. But arrogance, at its rawest form, denies that God is in charge and puts the self in charge. And once we do that, we have lost touch with reality. We have lost touch with truth. And we've lost touch with understanding the difference between right and wrong. The first understanding, the first commandment is, thou shalt have no God before me. But if you're arrogant, you do have a God before him, and that's yourself. And we need to understand that. We need to understand the depth of the incorrectness of arrogance so that we can dissolve it from our being. dissolve it from our self. We have to understand that if we walk through this life with judgment, we are also violating God's commands. God is the only one who can judge. We are not given that scope. I remember once I was in it with a group of people, and somebody was criticizing this one and criticizing that one and talking about what's wrong with him and what's wrong with them. And then someone in the audience looked at him and said, "Soon you're going to decide who goes to heaven and who doesn't." And that's what happens. Your arrogance will take you to the point of judgment to the nth degree. It has no limits. One of the interesting things about the qualities that are without merit is that they take you down a long and winding road that has no end, and you'll never know where you can end up following that road. You certainly won't end up in a good place. You'll end up lost because of the fact that you are, once you begin, unable to stop yourself. So we have to conclude for ourselves what it is that we want to accomplish and how it is we're going to accomplish it. And we need some structure to it. We need integrity. We have to be incredibly honest at all times. And this means honest with ourselves as well as honest with other people. Very often, people are dishonest with themselves and they give themselves kudos for things that don't deserve kudos. They give themselves credit for things that don't deserve credit. They hold themselves up higher than they should. The point is, we don't need to hold ourselves up. God holds us up. We need to surrender to His capabilities. We need to surrender to His way. There were a couple of things in my life that set the tone for my attitude towards existence. One of them was when I was about 27 or 28. I was working in a law firm, and we had just merged with another firm. And the man I was working with was arrogant and mean in a way. It's about the best word I can use. He wasn't a nice person. And I wrote, Bawa was in Sri Lanka at the time, and I wrote to him. And I told him that I was in this big firm and they had just built a new building, but I couldn't abide working with this man because of his nature and his qualities. And Bauer wrote me back and said, "It's better to live in your own rat hole than in somebody else's castle." And this had an enormous impact on me. He also told me to go out on my own and God would take care of me. Well, within about 3 months, I had started my own practice. And one of the things that I learned was the more independent that you can be, the better off you are in your existence. The more independent that you can be, the closer to God that you can get. If you're constantly looking to rely on others for whatever, then you are not looking to yourself to do what needs to be done in order to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. Another time, I was with Bawa and I was acting as his lawyer. We went to the immigration office in order to get his green card. A green card is a permanent residence visa in the United States. And to get your permanent residence visa, you have to have an interview with an agent of the federal government. And the night before, I got a phone call. I was living in Jersey at the time, and he was in Philly. And he said the meeting is tomorrow. We didn't give you a lot of notice, but we want you to get here tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock and drive Bawa to the interview, and you'll take him. So the first thing that happened was my wife turned towards me and said, "We have to clean the car." And then we drove down the next morning, got Bawa. We went into the interview room, and the man asked Bawa a whole series of questions, all of which were simple yes or no answers. The last one was also a yes or no answer, but the question wasn't that simple. It was a little more complex. It was, are you now or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? And Bawa gave a 15-minute answer. And at the end of his answer, the translator said, no. And they granted him his green card. When I got into the car with Bawa and the translator, I said, what went on in there? What happened uh, between him and the interviewer? And he said, well, Bawa answered the question basically as follows. He said, how could he, as a man of God, support communism, which is a godless understanding of things, and is dependent upon men taking care of other men without God in the equation? And this is another point that we have to realize. We can't depend on other people for our support. And this is one of the things that happens in communism. It takes away our dependence on God and replaces it with our dependence on the government. So we need to learn to be independent of having ourself being supported. We have to take control of our own situation. And the ones who get in trouble in this world are the ones who refuse to take control of their own situation or don't think they're capable of taking control of their own situation. So you have all of these victims out there in the world right now whose main strategy for advancement is to blame other people. Their main strategy is to say, we're in this situation because of what you did to me. Well, that lie is being exposed and being exposed in a big way. All of us know that we can take care of ourselves. All of us know that we can move forward through our own good works. Now, of course, there are handicapped people, and there are people with disabilities, and there are people with difficulties, and we need social services for them and to help them. But if you're an able-bodied person with the ability to get an education, you should be able to take care of yourself. And you have to take that responsibility on. You can never give up the responsibility of yourself to somebody else. It's in your hands. When judgment comes, the ones who get judged are going to say, are going to be asked, what did you do for yourself? What did you do on behalf of yourself? And you can't answer, well, I listened to him and he told me this and he said to do this, so I did that. Somehow, we have to be able to see through all of that and come to conclusions that are positive for ourselves. We need to be able to work for ourselves. Integrity is a big part of this. We have to be principled. There has to be a limit, a ceiling to what we do and what we don't do. We don't lie. We don't cheat. We don't take advantage of people. When someone works for us, we pay them before the sweat clears their brow. We have to be constantly involved in making sure that everything around us and everything we do has this sense of integrity. There's a method in acting called the method approach. And essentially, what the method is in method acting is that you give up your personality for the personality of the character you're portraying, but you give it up to such an extent that while you're playing the character, you're not thinking about playing the character. In other words, it becomes free, it becomes um, spontaneous, and it is who you are. Now, many people can't do that with themselves. They can't be free and spontaneous. They are constantly thinking what they're doing. They're thinking of how is it advantageous to me? What am I going to get out of it? And so before they do things, they have this whole scenario of self thought that goes into doing it. We have to be able to release ourselves of that self constant thought about why we're doing things and just do what's correct. We have to tune in to that resonance of what is appropriate and do what's appropriate. We have to become who we are, not who we think we should be, because that which we think we should be is an imagination. Who we are is the truth, and who we are is a child of God, capable of displaying God's qualities. And to understand that, we have to be free of all of the influences that are other than that. We have to be free of the influences of the world and free of the influences that striving in the world takes you to. We have to be free of the need for wealth. Doesn't mean you can't be wealthy. It means you don't have to have the need for wealth. We have to be free of the need for fame. Doesn't mean that you can't have some fame. It just means you can't want fame. We have to be free of anger. We have to be free of hate. We have to be free of judgment. We have to free ourselves from these things. And the reason I use the word free is because when you have these things, you are not free. If wealth is your standard, then you're tied to your wealth, and your being fluctuates depending on your wealth. If fame is your standard, the same thing happens. Any quality that you're trying to become that's other than divine will keep you chained. Any quality other than divine will keep you tied to that quality and the attempt to be able to make that more and more and more. This is the way Satan grabs people. When people are tied to their wealth, people ask them, what's enough? And Satan will whisper in their ear, just 10% more. And then when they get that 10%, he whispers again, 10% more. And it's never ending because these people believe that wealth somehow defines who they are. And in their definition, that's true. And in many of the definitions of the world, that's true. But do we take on the definitions of the world, or do we take on the definitions of God? Do we take on the definitions that society gives us, or do we take on transcendent definitions? Do we take on definitions of ourselves as to what we're striving for that are other than the definitions that the world puts on people? The world will categorize you by your profession. The world will categorize you by your status. The world will categorize you by your race. The world will categorize you by your religion. The world will categorize you by your color. All of these are false characterizations. We need to characterize ourselves by our qualities. And the way we do that is to become profoundly aware of our qualities, profoundly aware of our intentions, profoundly aware of what it is that we want to accomplish. And what we want to accomplish is not that complicated. We do our work in the world, but the underlying purpose of our existence is to come to know the truth. The underlying purpose of our existence is to come to understand reality. The underlying purpose of our existence is to return to the Father from where we came. Now, there are lots of things that you can do in this world to help with that intention. For instance, aiding others, working on behalf of others, helps one become real, helps one find the truth in themselves. When you concentrate on assisting another, when you concentrate on helping another, you give up the constant self thought that so many people have. Many people walk through their entire life picturing themselves, picturing their situation, and commenting on it. The brain does this all the time. It self comments on your situation. Now, you should be aware of your situation, but it shouldn't be the focus of your being. The focus of your being should be surrender. The focus of your being should be to leave that egocentric understanding of self and enter into that open space of unity where the separation between you and others doesn't exist. Now, this is not an easy road to follow. This is not an easy way to be. But if we want to know the truth, this is what we have to do. And there is no other path to the truth. People will tell you, if you give money to this organization, you will be blessed and you will be taken into the truth. If you believe in certain people or certain religions, you will be taken into the truth. If you join this club, you will be taken into the truth. The truth is that none of these things are going to do anything for you. What's going to happen for you to know the truth is you have to become the truth. There was a religious sect in the United States that disappeared. The reason they disappeared is they didn't believe in sex and procreation. So there was no way that they could keep it going. They were called the Shakers. And the Shakers believed that you became your own Messiah. You had to save yourself, and the Messiah had to develop within you. And what is the Messiah? The Messiah is the Savior. The Messiah is the one that brings you back to the truth, that brings you back to reality, that shows you God and brings you to God, that brings you correct action and correct being. And in becoming your own Messiah, you become the Messiah. So you become that which is from God, for God, to God. And this can happen for each and every one of us if we understand the nature of who we are. We are descended from God. God is an effulgence. Effulgence means it gives off eminence, it gives off rays. And the rays that God gave off, are the souls that became men. So we are emanated from God, and part of God is within each and every one of us. And we are either conscious of that or unconscious of that. The more time we spend unconscious of that, the more time we spend in illusion. The more time we spend conscious of that, the more time we are in reality. So to be in reality, we have to be conscious of the truth of who we are. To know the truth of who we are, we have to be explained the truth of who we are. We have to be taught the truth of who we are. And God, in His mercy, has sent prophets into the world as examples of what the truth is, and He's sent ketubs and sheikhs to be examples of what it is that we can become. So, if we are fortunate enough to find a true teacher, if we are fortunate enough to be in contact with a man who has found the path to truth and who has become the truth, then our obligation becomes simple. Become like him. Be like him. That's the point. He's there to show you what it is you're supposed to be, and then that's what you're supposed to become. There is a story about uh, a sheikh and his disciples, and the sheikh's name was Ahmed, and he had about 100 disciples, and one of them everybody considered a little slower than everybody else, and they'd make fun of him. And one day he was in the marketplace, and he's running around screaming, "I am Ahmed, I am Ahmed, I am Ahmed." And all of the other disciples made fun of him and ran back to the sheikh and said, so and so was running around the market screaming, "I am Ahmed." And the sheikh looked at him. He said, "You should all be screaming, 'I am Ahmed.' You are all supposed to become me." He understands that. You haven't understood it yet. You still think you are who you are. There is no you. There is only me. There is only one. And when you understand that there is no separation between us, then you will be on the path to the truth. There was a, a person who wanted to join a tariqat. A tariqat is a Sufi organization with a sheikh that is trying to learn the way towards God. And he came and knocked on the door, and they said, "Who is it?" And he said, "It is I, Ahmed." And they said, "You can't come in." And he came back again and he said the same thing. And they said, "You can't come in." The third time he came, he knocked on the door and they said, "Who is it?" And he said, "It is you." And they let him in. Finally, he understood the unity of existence. And it's only through unity that we can find the truth. Now, one of the interesting things is if arrogance abides within you, you can't have unity. If pride abides within you, you can't have unity. If anger abides within you, you can't have unity. If jealousy abides within you, you can't have unity. You have to be free of all of the things that separate you from other people. And these things like pride and arrogance and jealousy are all separations. They all push everybody aside and they put the situation as me and you, me and you. The situation has to be me and me, and we have to be able to see others as we see ourselves. The golden rule is very simple. Treat others the way you would have yourself be treated. We have to begin to understand this, and we have to break down all the defense mechanisms that we've built up our whole life to separate ourselves from everybody else and hold ourselves as distinct. In the world, distinction is a positive. Oh, he's a very distinct man. Well, in reality, distinction is a separation. Distinction takes you away from the truth because it separates you from the truth. All men have been granted souls. All men have that spark of God in them. But what's interesting and what needs to be understood is that spark is the same spark. It's not different. The emanations that came from God weren't different. What happened was the elements that surrounded those emanations were different. So we ended up with different colors and different race and different religions and different languages. And we took those differences as the definition of who we were, as opposed to taking the definition of God as who we are. Now, when you begin to talk about God, man, man, God, in many religions, that's sacrilege, that's heresy. But if you are able to get to some of the gospels that were considered heretical, essentially that's what they say. These people believed in the nature of man as God and God being within man. Jesus is an interpretation that shows that clearly and takes that to that point. But the point is, each of us are his children. Each of us have him within us. Each of us are on the path of returning to him if we are on the appropriate path. So we have to be very clear about what our intention is. Are we trying to correct the world, or are we trying to correct ourselves? Are we trying to make the world right, or are we trying to make ourselves right? Can we make the world right when we are not right? And this needs to be really well understood. Until we have wisdom, we are incapable of giving good advice. Until we have wisdom, we are incapable of making appropriate decisions. All of these come with wisdom. And what is wisdom? Well, there's lots of ways to define it. I'll try a few. One is acting from divine qualities. If you act from compassion, if you act from true mercy, if you act from justice, if you act from love, then the actions are going to be appropriate. The advice that you give is going to be appropriate. But if you have self motive, if you are thinking about what's in it for me, if you are thinking about how can I benefit from this, you've separated yourself from reality. And we have to understand the nature of reality. God is one. Reality is one. Man is one. All of creation is one. Allahu Ahad. God is one. And when we understand the meaning of that, then everything else falls into place. Billy Graham, an evangelist, was giving a sermon. And in the sermon, he said, if you walk into any church library, there are thousands upon thousands of books. Why? Because nobody could understand God is one. Nobody could understand the meaning of God is one. So they had to write all kinds of treatises trying to explain that and explain everything else. If we can focus on God is one, we can enter into the realm of the truth. If we can focus on God is one, then we can surrender willingly and easily, because then we will know that the only true existence is God, and we are not in reality. He is reality. And for us to be real, we have to become Him. Now, the world, the religion might tell you this is arrogant. The priests might tell you that they're the only ones who can understand this. The imams might tell you that you have to follow their instructions. The rabbis will say the same thing. But the truth is, each of us has to find our own way. Each of us has to become our own savior. Each of us has to go on the path that is the truth. And we have to clear that path for ourselves. Nobody else is going to clear it for us. Nobody else can be inside of us other than ourselves. And it is our obligation to clear that path within ourselves so that the truth becomes self-evident. And when the truth becomes self-evident, life becomes different. There's no longer any anxiety. There's no longer any fear. There's no longer any trepidation. There's no longer the need for things. There's no longer the feeling that we are somehow not being given what we deserve. We begin to understand that everything is available to us because everything is available to God. And God is without need, and then we will be without need. And when we are without needs, we are different. When we are without needs, we become content. When we are without needs, we become serene. And in that serenity, in that contentment, there's the space to find the truth. So we have to take those steps that take us to that place where we no longer need. We are the ones who are capable of giving. We are the ones who are capable of helping. We are the ones who are capable of interceding on behalf of those who need help and to make them understand that they can help themselves and in order to find truth have to help themselves. The Sheikh can only take you so far. And he told us that. He said, I can only take you so far, and then you have to move forward on your own. So we can't depend on anyone to take us all the way. The last few steps, we have to take ourselves, and we have to have the confidence that we can do that. We have to have the strength that we can do that. We have to have the faith that we can do it. God gave us all that capability. Let us take that and use it. Let us become what it is that we were meant to be, true exemplars of reality, true children of God, the ones who enter into his kingdom, live in his kingdom, and follow his divine guidance and his divine rules, the ones who disappear into him. May it be so for each and every one of us. Ameen, Ameen. Ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.